Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is calling for the impeachment of Mitch McConnell. And although you can't impeach a senator, so this is Politico, Donald Trump is calling for the impeachment of Mitch McConnell. One problem, you cannot impeach a senator. Trump also promised that if he runs and wins in 2024, McConnell will not return as majority leader. What he's saying is this man needs to no longer be in the Senate as a leader, as the Senate Majority Leader, which will happen within, less than a week. So September 8th, he'll be the Senate Majority Leader. Republicans will take the Senate, and they'll overwhelmingly take the House as well. Democrats have run this country into the ground. The economy is in free fall. Foreign policy is an absolute catastrophe. That's why when people said, well, how can you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump? It's like, yeah, foreign policy. Who knows what Bernie Sanders hasn't even spoken out against the absolutely dreadful foreign policy of this administration, of mashed potato brains and Democrats. But we wouldn't have had any of this with Trump. The inflation, the invasion and nightmare in Europe, we wouldn't have had any of this for a number of reasons. Trump focuses on negotiation, and he focuses on economic growth. We had record low unemployment in 2019 with median wages, real wages up 1.1%. Real wages are down, according to the Dallas Fed, 8.5%. And we had inflation at around 2%. Inflation now is about 8 to 9%, and it's much higher for energy, food, and rent. And then you have retirement incomes plummeting. It's a complete catastrophe. We had 2 quarters of negative growth, and then we had positive growth only because of arms sales and oil exports. Everyone is predicting a recession in 23. There will be an impeachment of Joe. Hunter's emails show clear graft and felony schemes. You have to read those emails in the New York Post and Daily Mail. But hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'll have a live stream on this topic and other topics tonight at around 5:36 p.m. Pacific time. If you want to give a super thanks to this segment, the super thanks is below. If you want to support my work long term, my Patreon is below in the pinned comment. Trump rips McConnell on debt limit. If I run and if I win, he will not be leader. And let's just read this Fox News article. They ought to impeach Mitch McConnell if Congress raises debt limit, says former President Donald Trump. So let's read this. Former President Donald Trump assailed Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell in a radio interview on Thursday and promised that if he runs and wins, he will run, and he's in the driver's seat. There will be a new Republican leader. Trump torched the Kentucky lawmaker on the John Fredericks show, calling McConnell a bad guy, and says he should be removed from office if he supports a Democratic-led effort to eliminate the debt ceiling, a legislative cap on how much money Congress can borrow to pay its bills. Quote, it's crazy what's happening with this debt ceiling. Mitch McConnell keeps allowing it to happen. I mean, they ought to impeach Mitch McConnell if he allows that. Trump said, frankly, something has to be. They have something on him. How he approves this thing is incredible. So he's accusing or alleging that they have some leverage on McConnell, which is interesting also. With the national debt standing at more than $31 trillion and increasing every minute, Congress neglects to cut spending. Federal lawmakers must perennially approve a debt ceiling increase to borrow more money to pay interest on the debt. So the interesting thing here is that Mitch McConnell is one of the Republicans who stood by and allowed the Mueller probe to take place. The Mueller probe should never have happened. That was a menace to democracy, okay? Not emotions you feel. Democrats, it's interesting. It's very bizarre. I'll speak in roundabout terms. Democrats are obsessed with Biden and even like a couple of Republicans, which is bizarre. They're obsessed with suspicion and distrust of a process. Now, Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders. They don't even have a functioning primary. When did an emotion become a foundation of democracy? When did acceptance of anything become a foundation of our republic? You go through the courts, This is very simple. This is not rocket science. Democrats went through the courts in 2016. They got struck down. So did Trump. He lost every court case 2 years ago. So what's the problem? They were dancing for joy. They were jumping up and dancing in the streets. When did emotion? When did acceptance? So they never had one day of acceptance that Trump was their president. They never viewed Trump as legitimate, and they tormented him with the Mueller probe on no evidence. There was zero evidence pointing to loyalists within President Obama's outgoing Democratic Party administration is not evidence. I mean, you'd have to be an imbecile to point to people with motivation to go after Trump. If you point to people with animus and contempt and disdain towards Trump and say, well, they thought he should be investigated, then you have problems with basic critical thinking skills. So this is very interesting too, Mitch McConnell helped create this environment where Democrats can pontificate about people who don't accept and who don't feel absolute trust and confidence in a type of system. Well, but the democracy we have is not based on emotion. It's not based on anyone's emotional state. This is very bizarre. Biden and Democrats have been saying for the past 2 years, if you don't, and it's infused within social media algorithms, if you don't adhere to a certain emotional state, suddenly there will be no more democracy. It's like, well, no. What Trump did and what Democrats did 4 years prior, and what Democrats did all throughout his presidency was go through courts. There was a special counsel. The Mueller probe did not find that Trump was installed by the Kremlin. The opposite, it exonerated Trump. And for the rebuttal, well, it found contacts that were suspicious. Oh, why don't you look at Hunter's emails, and why don't you look at 20% of U.S. uranium capacity sold to that country eventually, according to the New York Times. You think maybe there's some questionable contacts? Bill Clinton had lunch or dinner, I believe, according to Newsweek and The Hill, at Vladimir's house outside of Moscow. Gee, you think that's a suspicious contact? I mean, it's so easy when when you understand, when you read information in public record and reputable sources that undermines the official Democratic Party narrative. It's so easy to just eviscerate everything they talk about, all their talking points, everything they say. But Mitch McConnell has not even 1 foot with never Trumpers and 1 foot with Trump. He's just always siding with the old regime, the never Trump world, and the Democratic Party. He does the Republican Party and he does the country no favors at all in doing so. Chuck Schumer, and the difference between Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell is that look at Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Okay? Look at Democrats when they're in positions of leadership. They never give the olive branch to Trump or Republicans. They're always investigating and accusing Trump of everything under the sun. When they make the accusation, it's printed in the Washington Post, New York Times, and hundreds of other publications, and then we find out that there was no basis to the accusation, but there were investigations. And McConnell's fine with this. McConnell is fine with a very corrupt political system that's gone after Trump to the detriment of the entire Republican Party. When Republicans lost Senate seats, and they'll regain Senate seats, but when they lost Senate seats in Arizona and Georgia, that wasn't Trump's fault. That was the result of 4 years of investigating a Republican president and people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, Richard Burr, and all of these people who investigated a Republican president like a bunch of imbeciles. You don't see any Democrats leading the charge against Hunter. Gee, I wonder why. The entire corrupt apparatus would come crashing down. Graft is the lifeblood of the Democratic Party since Tammany Hall. So, you can't impeach a senator, but Trump is 100% right. Hit subscribe. If you want to give a super thanks to this segment, please do so. It would be greatly appreciated. My My Patreon is below if you want to support my work long term. Ladies and gentlemen, it's heating up. Things are heating up, and I will have a live stream at 6 p.m. Pacific tonight. Be here for the live stream at 6 p.m. Pacific.